This episode of the Device Talks weekly podcast is brought to you by Finnegan. To find out more information about all the services that Finnegan offers, go to finnegan.com. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
Hey everyone, this is Tom Salemi. Welcome to this week's episode of the Device Talks weekly podcast. Got a great show for you today. We're going to be speaking later today with Tim Herbert. He's the president and CEO of Inspire Medical System. He's an engineer turned CEO, and we'll find out how he made that transition and how he built a team that took Inspire public. Also, we'll speak with Rob Bodor. Rob is the incoming CEO at Protolabs, a digital manufacturing company, and we'll talk with him about their transition, about their business, and about a recent acquisition they made. Before we get into this week's episode, I did want to remind you that Device Talks Tuesdays starts in March. We'll be opening up with an episode featuring Quasar. It's going to be an interesting conversation about China. So please check it out. Go to devicetalks.com, find the Device Talks Tuesdays tab, and you can check out all of our upcoming presentations, all of our upcoming episodes, and register for them. Now, let's bring in my podcast partner, Chris Newmarker. Chris Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Good to be here, Tom.
It's an interesting Friday here at the end of a short week.
Yes.
So it came quickly, but
it did. I feel a bit off. It's kind of like I feel like there should be another day or something, and there's just not that usual like Friday like wow I just got a whole week done. It's kind of different. Got the rhythms different today.
And there's some chatter on the internal Slack about a new term for these types of days. What was that again that Nancy Crotty mentioned?
Oh yeah, it's Blur's Day.
Blur's Day.
Yeah, yes. I mean, does it even matter? It's Friday because we're we're just this pandemic. We're just like moving through it. And
yeah, someone asked me just before we got on, you have any big plans for the weekend? And I just kind of looked at him. I'm like, do we do that anymore? Does anyone have big plans for weekends anymore? We might get pizza.
Pizza, hey,
and watch
pizza.
A movie. Yeah,
I think pizza places have done pretty well amid the pandemic. That's like one of the few little joys you can get. So
pizza and podcasts. My friend.
You're right. That's it.
Yes. I actually was going to have a piece of pizza while we did this. I wish I had done that, but that opportunity has passed. But we can definitely deliver on this podcast, and we will deliver this podcast to our listeners in under 30 minutes, or it's free. Let's deliver this Newmarker's Newsmakers, Chris. What is number 5?
Well, number 5 on the list is we've got the FDA issuing a emergency use authorization for Thermo Fisher Scientific's combo COVID-19 flu test, and these types of tests are just like really important amid the pandemic because COVID is a really serious condition. Flu can be a really serious condition. If you are feeling really, really sick, do you have COVID or the flu? So versus having to do like multiple tests to figure out what's wrong, you can just get a combo test and hopefully sort things out.
Makes perfect sense. All right, let us go to number 4 on the Newmarker's Newsmakers list.
Number 4 on the list, we got Mainstay Medical raising $108 million. And Mainstay is a neurostimulation company. They've got their Reactive 8, which is designed to treat intractable chronic lower back pain. So neurostim's been a hot space. It's all about especially about packaging this pacemaker type technology to use all these different uses, and so $108 million for another company in the space.
And as we mentioned at the top, we'll have a neurostim company on today. I'll talk with Tim Herbert of Inspire, which has been a really great story. And Mainstay raised money from Sofinova Partners, which would be the one in Paris, KCK, Fountain, and Ally Bridge. So they have quite the syndicate going.
Oh, very cool.
All right, Chris, now we're going to take a break from the Newmarker's Newsmakers to hear our first keynote conversation, our opening keynote conversation. I had the opportunity to speak with Rob Bodor. He is the incoming CEO at Protolabs. Let's listen. Well, Rob Bodor, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
Can't wait to talk to you about your becoming CEO of Protolabs. But before we move into that, tell us a bit about what Protolabs is currently. What is it that you folks do, and how do you do it?
Absolutely. Well, and I'm very excited to talk to you about that. So, at Protolabs, our legacy business has been about organically transforming manufacturing, right, from end to end. We're over 20 years old, and we were really a pioneer in digital manufacturing from the start, both in terms of offering contract manufacturing custom parts online. We were really the first to do that in the late 90s.
Wow.
To really revolutionizing and digitizing the back end, meaning we truly have a digital thread that goes from the time the customer requests a quote all the way through the manufacturing floor to the back office, through shipping, and end to end. And we did that by infusing software and kind of internet technology and manufacturing automation using AI and other technologies into traditional manufacturing process. So we have great front end capability, right, for engaging the customer online, but then we also have this really transformative technology for automating the manual components of the manufacturing process on the factory floor. And together, that allows us to really digitize and automate manufacturing and provide tremendous speed at very affordable costs, because we've taken a lot of the waste out of the manufacturing process.
What percentage of your business is in the device industry?
Yeah, medical devices is our largest industry, and it represents about a quarter of our business globally.
Where are you involved in the development of a device, from as early from the prototype when they're developing the idea right through the final piece? Where do you sort of enter that process?
We enter right from the beginning, at the ideation stage, at the prototyping and design stage, where we can bring a lot of value by, again, making the parts, prototyping the parts within a matter of days, using the final end use process that they're going to use, which makes it a good fit for the FDA approval process as well. And a lot of customers will use us in that way, where example would be they're trying to finalize a design, and they might have a number of competing designs. So, we've worked with customers where we might make 8 or 10 molds of variations of the same design, right? Get them several hundred parts off of each of those molds within a week or 2 weeks. Then they can test and evaluate those different designs, destructive testing, whatever it might need to be, and then pick a winning design to take forward. Or sometimes they pick that winning design and then they iterate on that winning design a couple times to refine it, right? And now they've made 10 molds with us in the course of a month for $50,000, and they have a tremendous learning about their design, and they can feel really good about bringing that forward for approval. So that's one use case around kind of helping accelerate innovation in a very cost-effective way that we bring value in. The other way is really around production. And production, if at the time of product launch, to get new parts into the market for the lifetime of the product. If it's not a super high volume product that's not going to go into the millions or tens of millions, we can be very cost effective from a total cost of ownership standpoint. A lot of customers use us in that way. And then sometimes for end of life management, more on the larger instrumentation side, customers will use this as well. And in the last year with COVID, we played a very big role there, and actually very proud of what we could contribute. In February, March, when this started to emerge, we actually prioritized medical devices over all other industries, and within that, those products that combat the disease were the ones that we prioritized, and we waived our fees, right, for expedites, and we prioritized those over all others. And we did over 18 million in parts for devices like face masks, test kits, ventilators, respirators, and other devices that combated COVID-19. So, and in that scenario, we actually made millions of parts, right? So where we tend to be more of a high mix, low volume provider, molder, and manufacturer, there were definitely some cases with those products. And we've had that, of course, from time to time with others where we did numbers well into the to the millions because that was the right fit and the need for the customers at the time.
So do you work with device companies of all sizes?
Absolutely. Yep. From small startups all the way through mid-sized companies to, Fortune 100.
I want to talk about your acquisition of 3D Hubs in a moment. And again, you move into being a CEO, but you hit upon COVID. You mentioned that. This is sort of a question that finds its way into almost every interview. How did the changes that we all had to adopt to stave off COVID change how Protolabs was doing its work, and which of those changes will stick? Will Protolabs be a different company once we emerge from this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we took a very, I believe, comprehensive approach to this, focusing on our employees' safety. In the office environment, we moved almost all of our office folks, over 700 people in our business, from working in the office to working from home in the matter of about 1 week. During that period. And all our support teams did an awesome job to, keep everybody up and running, quotes returned and everything, maintained in a very effective manner. And those, essentially all those teams are still working from home, now almost a year later. And productivity has been great. And I really appreciate all the work that everyone's done. On the plant floor, we also instituted just a broad range of safety measures from, temperature screening, social distancing, requiring masks, more intense cleanings, and all of that. We've had a very strong safety culture as Protolabs. We absolutely lead manufacturing, right? Lead in the manufacturing industries and methodologies that we use. We are absolutely leading in terms of our safety records, and we approach this with very much the same mindset, which is around we view this as a safety concern, and we tackled it in that way. And I'm very proud to say that it's gone very well from that standpoint. And to your question about how's this going to look in the future, I would say that the main thing that we learned from this was that we could work very effectively with a more flexible policy around where we work from, right? So I absolutely expect that, as we come out of this and COVID becomes less of an issue, certainly expect that we will have, a continuation of greater flexibility. And in fact, we're right now talking to our employees and working through an approach where we'll have multiple, kind of tiers that will include, hybrid options and more flexibility to work from home for many of our employees as a result.
And how about your engagement with clients? It seemed to me that an operation like yours, where you're dealing with people from a distance, virtually through electronic means, this kind of change in this era is sort of made for that sort of dynamic. How has that changed your interaction, or has it changed your interaction with clients? And do you anticipate some sort of a change in the level of your business going forward as a result of the requirements we had to work under in COVID?
Given that we were an online company, I think that was to our advantage somewhat in this because we were able to adapt very quickly.
Sure.
And, most of our engagement with customers was already online and digital, and our teams were very facile with that. So I think that really helped us, and our marketing team, did an amazing job. We went from, essentially trade shows were shut down this year.
I know.
Right. And so we had to pivot, because of course that's part of our, multi-channel marketing approach. And so we had to pivot to do much more of these, and our teams actually developed a virtual trade show, which was really cool, that you could kind of walk through and had 3D elements to it. And our webinars, and we've had great success with webinars. We have a lot of content that where we can, be thought leaders in various elements of our, manufacturing space, and those are very well received. And so we've been able to continue to stay engaged with our customers and continue to add value, even, during this challenging time. So that's been that's been pretty effective for us.
Right. Well, I wanted to touch upon your recent acquisition of 3D Hubs. It's kind of what got me to reach out. Your press release stated that this is really going to help you carry your strategy further. Once again, let's use your words and not mine. What does the acquisition of 3D Hubs mean for Protolabs?
Yeah, so it's a real evolution of our strategy to be focused around the customer and meet the needs of the customer, right? So if you look at our history, as I talked about a little bit earlier, over the course of our life as a company, we have continually added more and more capabilities. We grew our scale and we grew our complexity, and we added additional services. And we will continue to have those services that we offer in our unique way in-house. And at the same time, we're finding that customers have more and more needs, and we want to be able to serve those needs in all use cases. What's really exciting to us about 3D Hubs is that they have a very complementary network of really great manufacturing partners who have a lot of capability, right? Capability that we don't have in-house. And by combining forces, we can now offer our customers, a very broad set of solutions. So whatever their need might be, whether it's, a broadening of our physical envelope to be able to manufacture parts, whether those be larger or smaller or in certain materials or other specialty capabilities that we don't offer in-house, that one of our partners can now provide. But in addition, it offers a broader range of lead time options and pricing options for our customers, so that whatever their needs might be and whatever use case they might have, right, we can offer them the best solution possible, which simplifies their life and can help us continue on this journey to be provider of choice for them as they to meet their custom parts needs.
Is 3D Hubs sort of a final piece of what you needed, or where do you see Protolabs sort of headed in the immediate future?
Well, so the other big milestone that we just achieved was the completion of our what we call Protolabs 2.0, which is our new and improved front end online e-commerce system, as well as kind of the back end system that I talked about, right? That completes our digital thread on the manufacturing floor. So with the launch of that, we launched that in Europe in November, and we just launched it a few weeks ago here in the US. And with that now launched, we also have a really improved user experience for customers and an architecture that allows us to be much more flexible, to quickly add more capabilities, and that'll also help us facilitate the integration for a really seamless front-end user experience with 3D Hubs, so that our customers, ultimately will have, one place that they can go and get access to all of those capabilities. So, and that's really what our focus is right now, is to work to bring that all together.
And to wrap up where I started, I mentioned you'll be becoming CEO. Are you? Well, you were in December. It was announced you would take over the CEO role from Vicki Holt, who was retiring. You've been in a transition role, I guess, over this time. Is the transition done, or are you
March 1st? March 1st.
So congratulations on that. What is your, we talked a bit about your plans for Protolabs plans, but specifically as CEO, do you have any changes in mind?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's just a tremendous honor and privilege for me. I've been with the company over 8 years, and the company has more than tripled in size during that period of time. Vicki's been with us for 7 years and just done an amazing job of leading the company through a lot of growth and change, and really set us up for this great next era of growth and the platform for growth. So, can't say enough good about her and what she's done for us, and really thank her for everything. And I wish her all the best with this next phase in her career. That's an exciting time for her as well. From my standpoint, I think it's absolutely about what we just talked about, right? Continuing this evolution of our ability to further serve the needs of customers, and putting this combination of Protolabs' ability to make certain parts in-house, combined with the network that 3D Hubs brings us, to really have a very comprehensive offering to our customers to meet their needs, whatever they may be in in custom contract manufacturing online.
Well, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to join us today. Thanks for being on the podcast, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, thanks to Rob Bodor and Protolabs for joining us on the podcast. Chris Newmarker, what is number 3 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers?
So number 3 on the list, Elizabeth Holmes. You heard about her?
I have, yes.
Yes, yeah. More Theranos trial news. So her lawyers are saying that her need for cash close and travel, it was just like other CEOs.
It's interesting. I remember the Carrier book. I don't remember reading her having this very extravagant lifestyle. Like, I don't remember ever going, oh my God, it wasn't Tycho kind of stuff.
Yeah. Nobody what was it like he was being like their CEO was being carried in by people that were dressed like
whatever was going on there.
Bad.
So in the Bad Blood book, but
none of that going on. Yeah, I think the prosecutors in the Theranos case, I mean, they've been saying they want to, put, have testimony and evidence on her lavish lifestyle, to say that was her motivation for, the fraud that, they claim that Theranos committed. But
interesting.
But her lawyers are kind of saying, in the grand scheme of things, the perks that she had as Theranos' CEO were, and the attention that she got weren't anything much different than what you'd see in the other major CEOs. I'd be really interested to. I don't know if anybody would actually talk about it, but I'd be really interested to hear what CEOs in general would have to say about that. Do they think that, the way she conducted herself was, really, beyond what CEOs normally do?
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to get some feedback on that. But as I said, I don't remember that being a real point of the Bad Blood book, but maybe there's more to it. All right, bring us to number 2 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers list.
Number 2 on the list, this was much anticipated. Butterfly Network has now started.
You love Butterfly Network.
Our readers love Butterfly Network. I mean, really, any story comes out about them, it's getting thousands of hits right now on MassDevice. I think the signal there is that this is definitely a company that people in the medical device community are watching. And I guess that would make sense. I mean, it's their big technology, their Butterfly IQ system is a transducer that, uses semiconductor technology to perform a whole body imaging. I mean, it just has a single handheld probe. I mean, it sounds like something from Star Trek. So yeah, and it's trading on the New York Stock Exchange now.
Well, I have a little gift for you, Chris.
Oh, wow.
I didn't tell you this earlier. Actually,
you're giving me a transducer. You're going to give me one of those.
This is more of the gift of an opportunity. We received an email from a spokesperson from Butterfly offering to have someone from Butterfly come on the podcast. They appreciate the shout outs. So we'll cool. Set up that interview. And since you love Butterfly so much, why don't you do the interview?
Hey, sounds like a plan. All right. It'll be fun.
All right. Let us do the number 1 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers list.
Number 1 on the list is we've got a former Medtronic executive who's been tapped to lead the Zimmer Biomet spinoff, which they're calling Newco. This is a spinoff of Zimmer Biomet's spine and dental business that's expected to close in mid 2022. It's one of the biggest deals right now that's underway in the medical device space, and they've tapped Vafa Jamili to be the CEO. And he most recently was a chief commercial officer at Rockley Photonics, but before that he was senior vice president of respiratory, gastrointestinal, and informatics at Medtronic. So
interesting.
He's had leadership jobs at Covidien, Cardinal Health, Baxter. So I mean, this is a really experienced, seasoned medical device executive. He's going to be taking over what's going to be one of the largest spine device companies in the world. I
was wondering at first, I don't know if he was leaving Medtronic now. It'll be interesting to see, and he's not. But so this does not fit my question, but it'll be interesting to see with the reorg. If we see some folks moving on from the company for one reason or the other. Maybe they're reassigned to a new Medtronic business they didn't want to be part of, or maybe new opportunities are just coming up, but be something to follow, I guess, in the coming months.
It's interesting. In the past, We have a number of leaders in the medical device industry that kind of came out of GE
That's right.
in the old days. Including like Omer Ishrak, Jeff Martha, leading Medtronic.
Greg Lucier from Medical. He was a GE guy.
Right. Yep. So all those people, and now we're kind of seeing this trend now that we've got Martha taking over Medtronic. We're starting to see like all these like former Medtronic people kind of moving into leadership jobs around the industry. So it's almost like it's like in the same way that maybe the older crop of executives, or I wouldn't say older crop, but definitely we had a crop of executives that kind of cut their teeth at GE during the Immelt days. Now we're kind of getting like this crop that were around Medtronic during the Ishrak days, and they're moving around. So it's interesting.
Oh, it was who left? It was Newmaker just a couple of weeks ago. Then she joined Zimmer as strategy officer.
Exactly.
Right?
They hired somebody from Medtronic as their chief transformation officer.
That's right, chief transformation officer.
Yeah, exactly.
So, maybe it's something that we'll see. Ellie Humphrey.
That's right.
Thank you, Google.
Here we go.
I'm going to pretend we have a producer. My producer just told me it's Ellie Humphrey. But it was actually just quick Googling on my part. So, all right, well, something to follow, and hey, maybe it'll be an article on MassDevice.
I see a trend. It's turning into a trend.
Excellent.
There we go.
Breaking news. Here on the podcast.
We figured it out right now. It's great.
All right, we love breaking news here on the Device Talks Weekly Podcast, but we know you are here for the interviews, and we have a great one today. Had a chance to speak with Tim Herbert from Inspire Medical. Got to know Tim a few years ago when I worked on a different medical device conference. Tim's a great guy, great to talk to, great to have on a stage. As I'll mention in the podcast, I'd hope to have this conversation on a stage, but of course things didn't work out that way. But please enjoy this conversation with Tim Herbert of Inspire Medical. Hey folks, Tom here. Before we get into our keynote conversation with Tim Herbert, I know a lot of you want to start companies, and many of you, of course, launch medical devices. Well, we have some free legal advice for you from our friends at Finnegan. We'll now hear from Arpita Bhattacharya. She is a partner at Finnegan's Palo Alto office, and she'll tell you what you need to do when you're thinking of launching a medical device.
If you're about to launch a new medical device, and you're wondering whether it's commercially safe for you to do so without infringing third-party patents, then conducting a freedom to operate search is the best step you can take to minimize your risk of infringing existing patent rights. Although the scope of every FTO is different, here are 4 things that will maximize the effectiveness of your FTO. First, carry out your FTO at an early stage in the development of your product. If you become aware of a relevant patent at the design phase of your product, then it is much easier to simply design around that problematic patent. You may also be able to resolve the situation by taking a license to the existing technology or even showing that the existing patent is invalid. Don't wait till you are going through FDA approval or you are days away from launching your product. Second, conduct your FTO search in the key markets in which you are planning to make or sell your product. For example, if you are only planning to commercialize in the US, but you plan to manufacture somewhere in Asia, then it is best to conduct your FTO for both those countries. Third, don't forget to look at pending patent applications. Pending applications can often be more problematic than granted patents as the scope of protection is less certain. Monitoring the progress of patent applications can therefore be important, and action can be taken to try and stop the grant of such applications. Fourth, if you have a limited FTO budget, then focus on the low-hanging fruits, for example, your key competitors. If you want more certainty, you can always expand the search later. Smart FTO and preemptive actions are your best friends in preventing unwanted litigation down the road after you have commercialized your medical device.
Well, Tim Herbert, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Tom. It's great to be here.
It's great to finally get to talk to you. You were going to be one of our keynote speakers at Device Talks Minnesota last year. And then I was hoping to have you in this year for Device Talks Minnesota, but unfortunately neither happened. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast. You've got one of those LinkedIn profiles that doesn't give me a lot of information to work off. It seems like your life started at Inspire Medical. So I'd love to find out a little more about your super secret background. How'd you find your way into the medtech industry?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm an electrical engineering background. I came out years ago, and I started working at Honeywell Defense back in the mid 80s, and focused there for quite a period of time until the defense industry started to back down. And that was when all the medtech was starting to hop in Minneapolis. And so all the engineers moved north to Medical Alley, if you will, and to all the Medtronic and Guidant and Boston Sci and St. Jude. And I went up to Medtronic and joined there in 96. And I worked in the corporate venture. So our job was to go around Medtronic, find technology, and bring it back to the ventures and develop that and create new business opportunities. And so I worked for many years at Medtronic. I never worked on the heart. I always did neurostimulation as far as spinal cord for pain or sacral nerve for urology. Everybody knows InterStim. We've done deep brain stimulation. Gastric stimulation for a disease called gastroparesis called Entera, which is very, very important therapy. But there's also a product there that we just didn't have the resources to be able to develop on, and that was Inspire. And that was stimulation for treating obstructive sleep apnea. And we were able to develop the first implantable system, and we were able to do the first in-man trial of 8 patients that ended in the year 2000. But to transition that to the next level, that's where it takes a significant amount of capital. Mm-hmm. And at the time, we were going through a CEO change, and that was when Bill George and Dr. Glenn Nelson were retiring, and our Collins was coming into Medtronic, and there's a transition away from the ventures to move those into the business units and have the business units develop the organic activity, and that the neuro division at the time just didn't have the resources to be able to fund everything that they had going, including Inspire. So I'd box up Inspire, and I had to move on and do other things. And we were successful in other areas, but we always had in the back of our mind that we were going to find a way to get Inspire started again.
Interesting.
And it took 5 years of going back and forth with Medtronic, going through the annual operating plan and working with Steve Osterly and Gary Ellis and Bill Hawkins and even Art Collins at the time. And we finally decided the right thing to do was create a Newco and spin it out and create a new company.
So for those 5 years, were you pushing more like, look, we need to commit Medtronic resources to this and build a business out of this? Or in the back of your mind, was Newco going to be the ultimate destination?
Well, I was busy working on deep brain stimulation and gastric stimulation projects, but I always was in touch with Gary Ellis to say, Gary, we got to throw a little bit of money at this Inspire. We can develop it. We need to kind of show proof of principle that we can really get the organization behind us. We worked very hard for those 5 years to find an avenue inside Medtronic to get that done, but it takes a significant financial commitment for many years. And finally, we realized the right thing to do is to just spin that out. And I was excited to say, yes, I will take this out. And the first person I called, of course, was my good friend, Dr. Glenn Nelson, who listened to the story. And I remember the famous quote from Dr. Nelson, and he said, this deserves a chance. And he put in the first seed money into Inspire back in late 2006.
Wow, that's a great vote of confidence from Glenn Nelson. Was being the CEO of a medtech startup part of your plan when you were planning? I guess when you moved into medtech, do you say someday I wanna, or did it just sort of come together?
No, I did not have an aspiration to become a public company CEO. In fact, I often told people that's not what I'm all about. That's not what we're going to do. But to be successful with Inspire, which was the most important thing, that's the role that I have taken, and that's the role that I really, truly enjoy, and have been doing this since. And I think aspiring to be a CEO, I think what it takes is a good foundation. So I have done a lot of different things. As I said, I'm an engineering background. I've worked in reliability. I've been a design engineer, not a good design engineer, but I worked in that space. I've managed clinical trials. I've worked in regulatory. I've spent a lot of time in reimbursement. I've been out in the field. I carried a bag. I sold and worked on marketing. So you really need to have a really broad breadth of experience. So when you get to that general manager position or that of a CEO, that really is what you can lean on. Is that breadth of experience.
But it's very rare, and I want to get into Inspire in a moment, but I've always been impressed by you because it's very rare to find a CEO who can start a company, carry the ball all the way to the end zone and take it public and remain CEO of a public company. Normally there's a handoff at some point where someone is they're the public CEO, they're the commercial CEO, they're the CEO who's bringing in some of the next skill level that's necessary to get a company where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. How did you hold on to the ball and sort of what did you do to make sure you had those skills going forward? Because all the other stuff you mentioned is great to get to the point, you're right, of leading a startup and moving a company forward. But being the CEO of a public company, I imagine that's a completely different skill set.
Well, in the early days, you are so correct. In the early days, I was in the operating room. I was supporting the implants, and I was in the sleep lab, working with the physicians on device programming and working closely with the research people. And today, I pretty much changed into a finance guy, right? I spent a lot of time making sure the investors understand our strategy, where we're going with the company, and make sure that we are cultivating a strong organization and bringing in very top talent. So I think that the trick to be able to transition from a startup through a regulatory based business to a reimbursement based business. And by the way, this is our first year of actually becoming a fully commercial business because we've been through the reimbursement hurdle. Mm-hmm. It's all about people. It's all about making sure that you bring in top people at the right time to be able to help the organization succeed, and people that you trust and are capable of leading their organizations. And that allows me to focus more on the high level of the organization and external communications with our important investors and supporters. But I think the trick to it is everything is, number one, having a commitment to the patient. Mm-hmm. That is the number one thing. And by everybody focusing on the patient, it's a good rallying point. And number two is making sure you just bring in top talent across the board to make the organization successful. And that's what we've done. And we have very, very low turnover because of the focus of who we are, the culture that we have, and our focus on the patient.
So it sounds like you're looking for the people who bring those skills that you may necessarily not be strongest in, and you're really building a team.
I went for the first, how many years? We spun out of Medtronic in May of 2007. We didn't bring on our CFO until 2014. We didn't have our head of human resources until a year later in 2015. We didn't bring on a chief operating officer. We brought in Phil Ebling from St. Jude just this past year. We didn't have a general counsel. We just announced recently that we brought on Brian Phillips, who is the long-term general counsel at Surmodics, just joined Inspire. So
he's your first general counsel?
He's our first general counsel. We always had a great partnership with Tom Sanders over at Stinson, downtown Minneapolis, but Tom recently retired, and congratulations to him. Mm-hmm. But it was time for us to transition, and we didn't bring that expertise into the organization until we were at that point where we could really let them grow and let them influence the organization with their experiences. And Phil, as an example, has done just a wonderful job. I think Steve Jandrich, our HR guy, he was head of HR at St. Jude, and from there he went head of HR at Jack Link's Beef Jerky, if you can imagine that transition back into MedTech. But he is able to come in and really build structure and a lot of the compliance programs and build a recruiting force that's able to hit our high hiring demands. And we've more than doubled or tripled in just the last couple of years as we continue to grow.
That's amazing. And just to be clear, so you were waiting to the point where there was a role that needed to be filled, and then you went out and filled that role. You weren't necessarily looking for the person who then, okay, we found the right person, let's bring them in. You identified the need first.
Absolutely. I think if you look at a lot of small startups, and that's one of the recommendations I always make, the first thing you see is the CEO will come in and they will create an org chart and they will populate all the boxes on the top. And that's not what an organization needs. An organization needs, people with shovels and people who are going to work and really contribute. Mm-hmm. And we don't need that top level step. You need experience, you need quality people, you need very high talent. But when you get to a larger organization, that is a different experience level and different skill set. And so that's part of the transition we're going through. And that'll continue as we move forward.
Let's talk a bit about the tech. What does the Inspire's product do, and how does it do it?
Well, Inspire is a fully implantable system for the treatment of obstructive sleep apnea. It is a therapy. Everybody can relate sleep apnea with CPAP masks, and people with a mask at night. And what that mask does is just blow enough pressure into the airway to keep it from collapsing. And we do the same thing, except instead of using external air to hold the airway open, we stimulate the hypoglossal nerve that's right underneath your tongue. So when we stimulate that, it actually moves the base of your tongue forward and holds the airway open as you breathe. It's also a closed loop system, because the only time we really need to stimulate the airway is when you inhale, because your diaphragm contracts, you have negative pressure in the chest, air has to rush in. Well, that's called breathing. So when you inhale, that creates a vacuum so your airway can restrict and even collapse. And that's what obstructive sleep apnea is. So our job is simply to stimulate the hypoglossal nerve as you inhale to hold the airway open. And again, CPAP does the same thing, except they use air. Here's the problem with CPAP. It's an external apparatus and it is high pressure and people are uncomfortable using it. And so the compliance to CPAP is known to be around 50%. Mm-hmm. That's the role of Inspire, that for those people that are unable to benefit from CPAP, those with moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, those are the patients that we're looking to treat with Inspire. It's about a 2-hour procedure. Under general anesthesia, but that's not the challenge. The key is it's a lifelong therapy, and you have a remote that you turn the device on when you go to bed at night, and it works all night, every night. And you get up in the morning, the device will either time out or you can shut it off, and you go about your normal day with the device off, and then same thing at night, turn it on. It's very adjustable, so the sleep physicians work with the patients to make sure the therapy is comfortable yet has sufficient stimulation to overcome their obstructive sleep apnea. And hence, that's why we have such a high efficacy rate, a very high safety profile. And in our latest study, the ADHERE registry, it's an ongoing registry we publish annually on the data that we've had. I think we've published on the 1,000 patient. Right now, we're enrolling upwards of about 2,500 patients. But in the 1,000 patient paper, we asked those patients 6 months after they had the therapy, what do you think? 94% said they'd do it all over again. Wow. That's when we knew we hit a home run, because we have an extremely high patient satisfaction score. We have a very therapeutic product in a disease state that left untreated has significant comorbidities, including cardiovascular risks, hypertension, and has been even linked to early mortality. So everything kind of aligns pretty good. And with the evidence that we've had in 2020, even during the pandemic period, we were really able to lock in all the reimbursement. So we have over 207 million covered lives. We have full Medicare coverage in all 50 states. We have a government contract for the VA and the military. And so pretty much we have full reimbursement for everybody, but just a few payers that we're still working with, and really allows us this year to be able to scale our field organization and grow the business.
Yeah, I want to talk about the reimbursement process in a moment, just to focus on the tech. And I want to talk about apnea, which is an interesting disease, I think. But if I have this done, where's your implant implanted, and is there anything visible on the outside? Is there some kind of something attached to my chest or my stomach?
The face of the therapy is the remote control, right? And that's what sits on your nightstand, and that's what you use to turn the device on. The Inspire system is all under the skin. The neurostimulator is placed below the collarbone, like other neurostimulators. The stimulation lead, or the wire, is tunneled under the skin to the hypoglossal nerve, which is just underneath your chin. And then the sensor is placed between the intercostal muscles, basically underneath your pectoris muscles. So there's nothing visible. And because we only use the device at night, and we only stimulate when you inhale, and with direct nerve stimulation, so it doesn't take a lot of power, we're able to get 11 years battery life out of that battery without any recharging. That's just phenomenal. It's great for the patient.
That is great. Well, let's talk about apnea for a moment, just as a market. I mean, it's one of those diseases where I think is dismissed easily. Someone may just think it's snoring. And I've talked to others in this space who say, no, you're literally almost dying several times every night. You're basically unable to breathe as I'm unable to speak. What is the challenge of going after a disease like that that's almost dismissed a bit by many?
Well, it used to be years ago. But if you think about the society today, the 3 pillars of life are diet, exercise, and a good night's sleep. And everybody has tools, their Apple Watch, their cell phone. Everything will tell you how well you slept last night and what challenges you may have. So the awareness of sleep apnea, or the awareness of good night's sleep, is just so well documented and so popular in the news today. Tom Brady just talked about how important it is for him to get a good night's sleep to be able to perform at a high level, right? The world is so aware of how well they sleep. Then we get into sleep apnea, and people now know the risks of sleep apnea. Every time you have one of those obstructive events, it's called an apnea or a hypopnea. And the number of events per hour is called the apnea-hypopneic index, or AHI. If you have more than 15 of those per hour, that's moderate, or more than 30 per hour, that's severe. Think about that. That's every other minute you are physically choked and you are not breathing. And what happens is the O2 level in your blood drops, and the brain senses low O2, so it tells the heart, you got to pump faster. We have low oxygen right here. The heart's pumping faster, but there is no oxygen in the lungs because the patient's being choked. So the body goes into natural distress and goes into what's called a microarousal, where the patient subconsciously is awoken to break the apnea so they can hyperventilate and breathe, and then they fall asleep, and it all happens again. And that continuous cycling of desaturations is what causes all the comorbidities and the cardiovascular challenges. For these patients, the heart works harder at night when you're resting than it does when you're awake during the day.
Wow.
So that's why there is a necessity to treat it. But if you think about just the size of it, let's talk about just the incidence, the annual occurrence. We went through all the reports of ResMed and Respironics or Philips today of all the CPAP companies. There are 2 million new prescriptions for moderate to severe sleep apnea for CPAP a year. A year. Think about that.
Global? Or?
Only in the U.S.
Just in the U.S.
Yeah, only half those people use the therapy consistently. That means 1 million people per year are prescribed CPAP for their moderate to severe sleep apnea, yet are left untreated. That's just a monstrous challenge that we are taking on. That's a very large market that we need to build capacity to be able to serve that population.
So that's interesting. So finding people who need this is not a challenge. The diagnosis is happening. The issue is that they're not complying with the current gold standard for treatment. So what was your process like then with the reimbursement? You talked about that earlier, and I know this has been something you've been. Well, first, actually, let me back up. Let's go to the FDA. You got FDA approval in 2014. If you would just kind of describe that process for us. Not what was it? Was it difficult? Was it easy? What was your engagement with the FDA like?
I think with the FDA, it's just, you just have to be transparent, right? The FDA wants companies to succeed. They're not there to be negative. They're there to make sure that safe and efficacious products are released to the market to help people. And that is just a great charter for the FDA. So it's important to partner with the FDA and show them your plan, show them how you're going to conduct clinical trials, conduct high-level clinical trials. So we did a series of feasibility trials to really show the proof of principle and show that if we conduct a phase 3 pivotal study, we have enough basis to have confidence that we will pass that trial, such that when we ran the STAR trial, which is a randomized trial, it is a 1-year follow-up for safety and efficacy. And when we had that data available and we passed all endpoints because we did all our preliminary work, then when we present that data to the FDA understands, yep, that is pretty impressive data. And then they become your partner to work through to get the approvals. Interesting enough, our timeline in 14 is extraordinary, that in January of 2014, the STAR trial, the randomized trial, was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. That was 1 month before we went to the panel meeting. So we had a unanimous approval at the panel meeting in February. Mm-hmm. We raised our commercial financing round in March, and just 8 to 10 weeks after the panel, the FDA provided full approval of our PMA. That is absolute. Well, it was record-setting until this past year with the demands from COVID. Mm-hmm. But that's extraordinary that we were able to work with the FDA to get the partner. And we've kept that partnership strong because we can continue to develop on the product and continue to evolve and make the product easier to use, more comfortable for the patient, and improve safety and efficacy. So FDA is your lifelong partner, and we have a great relationship with them.
That's great. So let's talk about the reimbursement process. What were the challenges there? You got the FDA approval in 2014. You're now talking about you're really in a more comfortable place with reimbursement now, 6 years later. Was that a difficult process to get the payers to sign on?
Well, it's not a difficult process. You just have to run your plan. And the plan is very simple. Now, we have an implanted product, the neurostimulator, that provides us the resources to do individual prior authorizations for patients. For lesser priced products, it's more difficult to do, but we could commit to the patients. Now, we were entering a new market space. There are other companies and great companies like Nevro, Axonics that are moving into spaces like spinal cord for pain or sacral nerve for urology. But the groundwork has already been set. So when they come into the market, they just need to distinguish themselves, create a market, and grab market share. But the reimbursement is already established. We have to work from the beginning to establish reimbursement and show the safety and efficacy of the therapy. And we have to prove that to United Healthcare and to CMS and to all the other commercial payers and even the government VA. So when we start out, every single case is an individual prior authorization. And when you submit that prior authorization, it is denied. And then you submit a first level appeal, it is denied. You submit a second level appeal, it is denied. And finally, you can get to an external medical review, which is an independent arbitrator between the insurance company and the patient. And we started to win all those cases because we do have sufficient evidence to show safety and efficacy. That was the trick. As soon as we can get patients through the appeal process to the external medical review, now we start building a track record. And then once we got 50, 100 cases approved at United Healthcare, then United Healthcare can start looking at their own patients, and they can start looking at that growing body of evidence. And soon we had 5-year follow-up data. Soon we had large clinical studies. And all of a sudden, now we're building a dossier that does fit the mold for full coverage. And you start, I think Aetna was first. Aetna was the first breakthrough that broke coverage. And a year ago, we had a positive review from Evidence Street with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we pick up all the Blues programs. The most interesting accomplishment that Inspire had in the market access team was when we got national Medicare coverage, but we did it locally. What I mean by that, we went to the individual MACs right? Medicare area carriers or consultants, if you will. And we had them write a local coverage determination. And there's currently 8 or 9 MACs around the United States, and every one of the MACs wrote a LCD, all very consistent. They actually work together. And all of those local coverage determinations published in May and June of 2020. And now we have full Medicare coverage without going through CMS. CMS was a part of the process. CMS was engaging with the MACs to be supportive. CMS put guidelines out there to make this acceptable for the MACs to execute this program. But I think we're the first company to accomplish this feat, and credit goes out to Kathy Sherwood and our reimbursement team for being able to develop a national Medicare coverage policy locally. How unique is that?
That is very unique. That's great. I know we're bumping up against your time here, but I guess this leads us into the final question area. It sounds like you've got all systems go, all cylinders are running, whatever metaphor you want to use. Where does Inspire go from here? What does your next year look like for business? Are you just building on the business you have? And what is next? Can you be essentially a single product company, publicly traded, going forward, or do you see a need to build out into other areas?
A lot of sub parts to that question. So it's kind of...
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get it under the wire.
Well, what we're saying is that we did have such a major accomplishment in the reimbursement environment last year. And even on top of that, there's a whole new Category 1 code set that was approved by the AMA in October. And we're just going through that RUC valuation process. So Inspire will have a brand new Category 1 code set January 1st, 2022. That's just absolutely exciting. And that really is good for the surgeons that prescribe it. We also learned early on that with the significant number of patients with diagnosed moderate to severe sleep apnea, yet unable to use CPAP, that we could reach this population directly. And so years ago, we started a direct-to-consumer program and reach out directly to patients to build awareness. Today, we run TV in most major cities, and we have TV ads that basically simply stated, if you've been diagnosed and are unable to benefit from CPAP, Inspire is a therapy that can work with just a touch of the button. And it's amazing how many web hits we get. We get well over 3-4 million web hits of people interested. They want to learn more, and they come to our website. And now we've started something called an advisor care program, which basically is a call center. And what we do is we communicate with these patients to get them connected with the right physicians. Sometimes patients don't have, they haven't been diagnosed with sleep apnea, so they should see a sleep physician. Sometimes they're ready for Inspire, so they should go to an ENT. So we're going to be scaling that up this year, scaling up our website, scaling up our direct-to-consumer, but that means we also have to scale up our field team. So the two words that we're using for 2021 are capacity and conversion. We need to grow our capacity, increase the number of centers that provide Inspire, and increase the utilization at the existing centers to make sure we get scheduled OR days. And the conversion comes from using the call center of all those inquiries to our website, speak with those people, find out what they need, get them in contact with the right physician, and improve the conversion rate from inquiring patients to those receiving Inspire therapy. So we are just at the very beginning. So yes, we will continue to be focused on Inspire, focused on those patients with sleep apnea as we move forward. We're excited to be a public company. We're excited to have the right to grow the therapy and grow the adoption of it. And it's just a great place to be and Inspire. I'm nothing but proud of what we have accomplished at Inspire, and proud of the quality people that we have and the people that are committed to the patient. So yes, you're going to continue to hear about Inspire for years to come, and it's nothing but exciting.
And that's great. Do you plan on acquiring companies now that you're publicly held, growing your portfolio through acquisition? And then I'll let you go.
Well, we know we have a very unique technology with our closed loop stimulation. So we always look for what would be the right approach for us to take for other disease states that we can look at that require closed loop. Most other neural stimulators that you know for spinal cord for pain or deep brain stim, those are, for the most part, all just open loop, meaning you just set a duty cycle. And our ability to sense and react, sense and stim, opens up other channels. So we always look for opportunities without defocusing our key product. And then we'll also look at, is there other ways that we can grow a business to really help the sleep apnea patients? So we certainly have a very talented group of people and very strategic group of people. So we're always looking for things that can help us. And we invest very heavy in our own development of our technology, not just the implanted products, but we have a whole digital platform that is coming out with the Inspire app has been released. The Inspire Cloud is our cloud-based patient management system that makes it easier for sleep physicians to manage a greater number of patients. So we have just so many initiatives going on from a technology standpoint too.
That's excellent. Great. Lots of two different paths to go, neural and respiratory or apnea. I appreciate the time, Tim. I look forward to the time and place where we can meet in person and do this on a stage somewhere.
I still look forward to that day as well. I hope everybody stays safe and you can see the tides turning, that we're getting on top of this COVID thing and the world's getting back to normal. And we're seeing that with an increase in the number of people that are again receiving Inspire therapy. So pretty cool. All right, Tom, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Take care. All right. Well, it was great to hear from Tim Herbert at Inspire Medical. I really like Tim. He was, number one, very easy to edit. He doesn't have a lot of excess noises in his interview, no ahs or ums. But I love the fact that he just started out as an engineer and created this opportunity to be CEO, and now he's CEO of a publicly held company, which is not easy to do. So Tim Herbert's a good guy, and hopefully we'll have him at an upcoming Device Talks meeting. We'll have Device Talks Boston on October 4th and 5th, but more likely we'll see Tim in Minnesota next year. That's trending toward late April, early May. So stay tuned for those details. Chris Newmarker, how can folks find you out there in social media land?
Hey, I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Newmarker, just like a Newmarker, and I'm on Twitter as well at Newmarker.
Excellent. I am also on Twitter at MedTechTom. I am on LinkedIn, Tom Salemi. I am on Clubhouse, still struggling to figure it out, but you can find me at MedTechTom on Clubhouse. We will be doing something there at some point soon. I think it's be a great opportunity to connect with people more directly. And that's it. That is a wrap. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Please do subscribe to this podcast. If you do, you'll get it right away, as opposed to having to wait for us to post it on social a few days later. We have hundreds of people who listen to this podcast over the weekend. They must subscribe. So be one of those cool few who hear the podcast early on. And if you do enjoy what we're doing here, please share the news on social media and tell your friends. And hey, give us a ranking and a comment again. Attaboys never hurt, right, Chris Newmarker?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week. We'll have another episode of the Device Talks Weekly podcast waiting for you.
See you soon.